Hello, Grumpy Old Fart here. I try to do some historical UFO stuff because the Navy recently announced that the UFOs are real because of some camera footage that they got off the carrier Nimitz. Well, they announced that that camera footage was real and therefore UFOs are real. So now we have to go take a look back at some historical stuff that people looked at with kind of a, and because now maybe these people weren't crazy, maybe they weren't drunk or on drugs or hallucinating or whatever, because if the UFOs are real, maybe they really did see it. So, we're going to Zimbabwe this time, 1994. The Ariel school, 62 school children witnessed this. Let me set a little context here. The teachers were in a meeting in the school. The kids came running up in a group, screaming, terrified. Teachers didn't know what to make of it. And the stories they were telling were crazy. Or at least that's what the teachers thought. But all the kids were telling the same story. They got them separated and they were telling the same story with the same details. 62 of them. Apparently, the UFOs were very noisy, like a very loud flute. The UFOs, they were one big one and a whole bunch of little ones zooming around it. Now, these kids witnessed what they described as two alien beings on the ground. One of them was running off through the woods. One of them was in the schoolyard. Okay? If you're a parent, this should scare the piss out of you. Because it's one thing to say, people see UFOs in the sky, blah, 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 They're at the kids' school. Okay? And say they're not UFOs. Excuse me. Say they're not UFOs. There was a stranger that the kids didn't know who looked weird at the school. That should scare you. I'm just saying. Back to the story. It scared the heck out of the kids. They were crying and running around. Now, this is the way they described the aliens. The aliens' eyes looked evil. Their words, evil. They stared at the kids like they wanted to take them. And a lot of the kids thought it was possibly the end of the world. So these kids were very terrified. It was a very traumatic event for them. Teachers were very convinced by this behavior. Initially, they thought the kids were making it up or playing a joke or something. But once they were talking to them independently, and the kids were given the same stories, drawing the same pictures of the aliens and the craft, that was convincing for them. Because if this was a hoax, it was very well coordinated for little kids. All the kids' descriptions of the aliens were the same. The pictures were the same. The pictures of the UFOs were the same. I mean, it was very, very compelling. And to this day, these kids still have nightmares about this. They're still traumatized about it. Now, people, they tend to look at people who see UFOs as nut jobs or, whatever. But how do you argue with 62 school children who are independently saying the exact same thing, and there's no way to discredit them? How do you argue with that? These kids, kids have imaginations. We all know that. But this, to me, is very compelling, very convincing. Because separately, once you separated the kids into little groups and individuals, they were drawing the same pictures of the aliens. They looked pretty much identical. And they were drawing the same pictures of the UFOs. And the scary part was, this wasn't just UFOs in the sky, or even one landed and taken off like in the other school in Melbourne, Australia, much earlier in the 60s. There were alien beings running around on the ground outside of the UFOs. To me, that would scare the pee right out of me. I guess you have to take everything with a grain of salt, but you have to judge each story, because let's face it, there's a lot of people who say they've been abducted by UFOs, or they've seen UFOs, but they're not exactly the most credible sources. But how do you discredit 62 school children? In the other one, it was several hundred school children. You see what I mean? If it was a hoax, it was well coordinated, and it was beyond, in my opinion, beyond the limits of the organizational skills of little school children. Little kids, like, 8 to 10 years old. At any rate, take from that what you will. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all.